Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly along with Justin Godsey. This is the 30 Clubs 30 Previews MLB special. Go ahead to my channel, the youtube.com/Mr. Kelstar. Go ahead to my channel and I've created a playlist where you can watch every single team's preview that we've done so far, and within a month or so we are going to have every single MLB team previewed over 30 minutes for pretty much every team. If not, it's right at 28 or 29 minutes. First off, check out my website, section215.com. Check out Justin's YouTube, youtube.com/nationsportsblog. And follow us both on Twitter at TheJustinGodsey and at CashKelly_TRST. Not going to waste any more time with plugs, though. We're getting into the San Diego Padres season preview today. A team that went 76-86 last year. Bud Black returns as manager, and I think he's done a tremendous job as the manager of this San Diego Padres team. Justin, they didn't do a ton in the offseason, but let's go over some of the moves that they did do, starting with the guy that you met last year, Faustino De Los Santos.
Yeah, Faustino De Los Santos, he's coming over from the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee Brewers picked him up during the offseason from the Oakland A's. The Brewers took Faustino De Los Santos, put him down in the minor leagues. He's now coming over to the San Diego Padres, where he has a huge opportunity to come in this bullpen and get a spot in their bullpen.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that he has that opportunity. Now, I don't think anything's a given yet, but he has the opportunity. They also bring in Sean O'Sullivan and the veteran Freddie Garcia, who they signed to a minor league deal. Quite honestly, you're in a small market type team with the San Diego Padres, and you're going to have to hope that some of these in-house guys overproduce for what you're going to get, because it's never been a team that is able to go out on the open market and sign a ton of free agents.
Yeah, Sean O'Sullivan, when you look at Sean O'Sullivan, I mean, I grew up watching the Padres, I grew up watching the Angels and the Giants, and I saw Sean O'Sullivan. He made his MLB debut back in 2009 for the Angels, and, he wasn't, and I had a gut feeling that he wasn't going to be a promising Major League Baseball player, but, throughout his MLB career and into today, I mean, this is going to be his fourth team in his career, and it seems more than likely that he's going to be, a fill-in guy just in case, a Tyson Ross goes down, Eric Stoltz goes down, and that's pretty much just going to be his role, unless when the rosters expand out a little bit, the Padres can start calling some guys up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, what we're going to do is break down each part of this team from the lineup, the rotation, and the bullpen, and then give you our season projection on the team. So, Justin, beginning at the catcher's position, we are looking at Nick Hundley behind the plate. Nick Hundley last year, as I pull up his numbers, Nick Hundley last year in 58 games hit 157 with 3 home runs, 22 RBIs, had some injuries, no doubt about it last year. Has really never put together a full MLB season where he's been able to stay healthy and remain productive for an entire season. Now, if you go back to 2010, 2011, he was giving you 9, 10 home runs. You'll take that. But what they need to get out of him this year is a more complete season.
He's been on a decline the past couple of years. I mean, he's been playing down in the minor leagues since Yasmani Grandal has been, rising up through the minor league system. Nick Hundley last year, with the injury prone, he is injury prone throughout his career. Going into this season, the Padres are giving him the opportunity to get back in the starting role, because they don't know the exact, future right now for Yasmani Grandal. Is he going to get suspended due to the Miami steroid allegation that's going to be going on right now? And, Nick Hundley, he just needs to remain healthy and play a full season of baseball. And, this is a guy who's not going to give you a lot of home runs. Like you said, I'll be okay with 9 home runs a season from Nick Hundley. Really great, solid defensive guy, and a nice average catcher on your roster.
Yeah, he would be fine if he was your backup. The problem is this team has a few guys that would be fine if they're your backup, and no one that stepped up as a legitimate catcher. Now, backing him up, you look at one of those two guys, that's John Baker, who last year in his first season in San Diego, after coming over from what was once Florida, it's now Miami, even though technically Miami's in Florida, but you get my point. San Diego last year in his first season there, in 63 games, he had 238, 0 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's more of a guy you're going to see in there for his glove. He can give you some RBIs off the bench. He does even have a bit of speed. He stole a couple bags last year. overall, John Baker's not someone that's going to wow you behind the plate. And then, Justin, you mentioned Yasmani Grandal, who last year in 60 games hit .297, 8 home runs, 36 RBIs. He seemed like a guy who, coming into the season, had a chance to potentially be a starter behind the plate. And then this stuff with the Miami PED clinic has come out. I don't know if exactly his name was listed. That's all we know. We don't know if he took steroids, HGH, if he was consulting him like Ryan Braun said he was. We don't know what he did. But it's certainly not what you want to have happen when you're coming into the spring training.
No doubt. Yasmani Grandal, I mean, this guy has what it takes to be a top catcher in Major League Baseball. I mean, going back to, I was even watching that day when MLB Baseball blogs around, I have this guy's video of him being drafted from the U of Miami, coming over to the San Diego Padres. This guy has a bright future ahead of him, but you know what? With this, with these allegations, I'm not saying it's a set in stone that he actually took the steroids, but the allegation is going to hurt this guy a little bit, and I think that's why the San Diego Padres are listing Nick Hundley ahead of him, because right now, you don't know the exact future for, guys that are on the list, like Bartolo Colon, like Yasmani Grandal, and Ryan Braun, exactly.
And A-Rod to throw him in there as well. Now, over at first base is one of the guys that I look to have one of the biggest breakout seasons in the MLB this year, and that's Yonder Alonso. Last year, coming over from Cincinnati, where he had played a minimal amount but had had tremendous early success with the team, Yonder Alonso, I was expecting a big breakout rookie-type season, and he gave you a good season. At .273, 9 home runs, 62 RBIs, stole 3 bases. It wasn't a bad season out of him. He minimized the strikeouts for a first baseman. There were some good things to take away, but I think you're going to get a lot more pop out of Yonder Alonso this season. I think you're going to get an average closer to .295, right in that area. So I expect Yonder Alonso to lead this kind of next generation of first basemen with Freddie Freeman, those type of guys who might not hit for quite as many home runs as the Prince Fielders and Ryan Howards did in the generation right above them, but what they will do is they'll give you a better average and strike out a little bit less.
Yeah, I agree that. I thought that Yonder Alonso was going to have a huge year last year, but you know what? He had a great year last year. He didn't get you a lot of home runs, but he got you that solid average at .273, and that's really positive for a first baseman. But going into this year, I have a lot of writing on Yonder Alonso. He's a good fantasy pickup for you fantasy players out there. Yonder Alonso, I have a gut feeling that this is a guy that can reach a full potential of about 25 home runs this season if he can just lighten up a little bit and get more power into his swing. And I think Yonder Alonso does have that caliber to reach 25 home runs a year.
Backing him up at first base, you have a few options, both of whom can also play the outfield. You look at the veteran Mark Kotsay, who's been around basically my entire time of watching baseball. He's been with the Marlins, the Padres before, the A's, the Red Sox, the White Sox, the Brewers, pretty much every team in the MLB. Last year in 82 games for them, he hit .259, 2 home runs, 14 RBIs. He was once a guy in the early 2000s that could steal a few bases for you. Now he's just more of a backup. He can fill in valuable roles for you, and he brings that veteran experience onto your bench. And then you also have Jesus Guzman, who we'll see again in the outfield, who in 120 games last year hit .247. That's not great, but he gave you 9 home runs, 48 RBIs, so that's something to look for off the bench, is a little pop from Guzman. Now at second base, Justin, let's go over our second baseman here, Logan Forsythe. I think that he is a pretty solid young second baseman last year. Hit .273, 6 home runs, 26 RBIs. He's not going to blow you away at the plate, but I like what I've seen out of him. He stole nearly 10 bases this year. I might look for an expanded role on the base pass this year, but overall I like what I've seen out of him.
I like Logan Forsythe a lot also because Logan Forsythe is a guy who plays great defensive baseball. He's not going to steal you a lot of bases, but he's good to have on the base path because that's what this team needs. They need runners on base. Logan Forsythe, he does have the speed to do so. He's also a multi-tool player. He can play the outfield. He may not be listed in the outfield, but when you look at his minor league stats, with AAA Tucson and in the long throughout his minor league career, this guy has also played the outfield, so that's also good for the San Diego Padres. But Logan Forsythe overall will give you a nice solid average. When you looked at last year, you've had .273. I do expect that to be around in the same ballpark, maybe at best maybe a .280, .281, maybe even .283. And, I think overall Logan Forsythe is going to be a great up-and-coming baseball player for the San Diego Padres.
Backing him up at second is Alexi Amaristo, who last year began the season in Los Angeles, only ended up playing like 1 or 2 games for them. Coming over to San Diego, he hit 240. That's not great, but he was able to steal 8 bags, hit you 5 home runs, drive in 32 RBIs. So he was able to play a valuable role coming off of the bench for them. And look for him to do that again this season, getting some looks at second base, getting maybe even some looks at shortstop and third base as well. At shortstop, you're looking at Everth Cabrera starting last year in 115 games. Cabrera hit 246, 2 home runs, 24 RBIs. Obviously, he's not in there for his bat, but he brings a great glove, and he is one of the best base stealers in the MLB. Stole 40-plus bags last year, had a very good year on the base paths, and that is really his niche on this team.
Absolutely. This guy also, kind of like Logan Forsythe, does play the outfield also, but you know what? They're gonna keep him at shortstop, which was his primary position when you also look at the minors. Everett Cabrera, the guy was in the top 5 in stolen bases last year, and this is a fast outfielder / infielder as well, because when you look at Forsythe, he's not going to wow you with the home runs. He doesn't have that power, but you know what? He's going to give you, on average, about 2 home runs a year, which that's going to be pretty decent for a shortstop of his caliber. But Everett Cabrera, I'm really satisfied to have this guy on the San Diego Padres. This guy is overall a great baseball player, dangerous on the base path, and that's going to be something that's going to be good for his advantage this upcoming year.
Now, at third base is the team's best overall player, their highest paid player. He's going to make about $9 million this year, and that would be Chase Headley. Last year, Chase Headley finally had that season that scouts always predicted. This was the guy coming up that could play third base, he could play left field, he was supposed to have this power, and it just never really seemed to click. The most home runs prior to last season that he ever hit was 12 home runs in 2009, and then teams wanted him at the deadline last year, they didn't get him, and then all of a sudden after the deadline, Chase Headley exploded, ended up hitting 286, 31 home runs, 115 RBIs, stole 17 bases. He had one of the best overall seasons in the MLB last year. Now, do I anticipate him hitting 31 home runs again? Probably not. He got ridiculously hot late in the season. But I think some more realistic numbers, 24 home runs, 90 RBIs, right in that area. If you can get that, that's solid out of a third baseman. My guess is that if the Padres are not in contention, this is a guy who I believe is a free agent to be at the end of this year. The Padres will capitalize and move Chase Headley at the deadline.
I don't think they're going to move Chase Headley at the deadline, because you know what, we're talking about the face of the franchise right now. I know you can look at Yonder Alonso, you can look at Cameron Maven, but you know what, they got to keep their main power bat in this lineup, and that's all coming from Chase Headley. I do agree with you there, Tim, about, you know, is he going to hit you 31 home runs again? Probably not. I mean, but he has a bright future in Major League Baseball. He's still pretty young, and Chase Headley, he does have the tools to, you know, to reach 31 home runs again, but you know what? I got a gut feeling that he's not going to rise up to the 31 home runs as we saw last year. I think this upcoming year, I'll be really satisfied to have him maybe at 25 or possibly even at the lowest at 23 this upcoming year.
All right, now in the outfield, we have Carlos Quentin, once an MVP candidate with the Chicago White Sox. In his his first overall season, I should say, they ended up signing him to an extension last season when many believed they would trade him, and not too many MLB people thought that was the correct move. But the Padres are trying to kind of build a core here rather than continuing to trade players away. So they lock up Carlos Quentin, who in 86 games last year hit 261 with 16 home runs and 46 RBIs. He always has the power, and that's something that is extremely hard to get in San Diego. Even though I believe they moved the left field wall in prior to this season, it has not been a place in Petco Park, as beautiful as it is, that a lot of people want to go play in, because it just has not been a hitter's park. Carlos Quentin has power. The one issue that it comes with is that he can never seem to stay healthy for an entire season.
That's just the main issue right there for Carlos Quentin. Like the knee injuries for Carlos Quentin. That's the biggest factor right now for Carlos Quentin. This is a guy who can go out there and hit you some home runs. One of the top outfield, well, not the top outfielders. He's in my top 25 outfielders. Carlos Quentin just needs to stay healthy. Last year in 86 games, 16 home runs, 46 RBIs, and batted .261. I hope that he can raise those numbers up a little bit because this is the potential. Throughout his whole career, this guy has hit 36 home runs in 2008 with the White Sox. This guy has potential to reach 25 to 26 home runs in a year. And if the San Diego Padres are going to be for real this year and really try to contend in this National League West, they need Carlos Quentin to have to play a full year of baseball and stay healthy this whole year because you know what? He's such a valuable bat and a valuable piece to this offense.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it because he gives Chase Headley protection in that lineup. If Carlos Quentin is out, then teams are not going to pitch to Chase Headley, so he needs to be in that lineup. Again, you look at Jesus Guzman as one of the backups there, brings some pop, 9 home runs last year. In center field, Cameron Maybin, another former top prospect, was once the big piece traded from Detroit to then Florida for Miguel Cabrera and Dontrelle Willis, along with Andrew Miller. And last season, he had 243, 8 home runs, 45 RBIs, stole 26 bases. I was disappointed with this season last year because I want to see that average closer to 260, 270. That's the area where I was expecting it to be. And prior to last season, he stole 40 bases in 2011, only stole 26, and that's still productive, but it's not as good. I'd like to see him get closer to 40 stolen bases. He's got a nice glove in the field. Look, he's never developed a great bat, but he's still relatively young, 26 years old, so I think he is still a piece that the Padres look as one of the guys they're going to have on this team for a long time.
Now you said 270. That's going to be the biggest average of his career because the biggest average that he's ever had in a full season of baseball was back in 2011 when he was with the Padres at 264. But if you're trying to hit for 270, that'll be a big year for Cameron Maybin. That's what the Padres are still needing. I think Cameron Maybin, he's going to be coming into the season as the starting center fielder, and you know what? This guy is going to get you on base a whole lot, and he's really dangerous on the base path. Tim, I do agree with you. This is a guy who has a lot of potential to steal above 40 bases. And, back in 2011, one of the biggest years of his career was with the San Diego Padres in 2011. Stole 40 bases. Really impressive year for Cameron Maybin. But you know what, Tim? I have to agree with you on a lot of key factors there. But, the 270 average is going to be huge for this guy if he's going to try and make it this year.
Yeah, and it's probably wishful thinking. I think I'll head closer to the 250, 260 range, but we'll see what happens. And you continue to look around this outfield and this entire team, really, and realize that the Padres might be the best base-stealing team in the MLB because in right field, you have another guy capable of stealing 25 bases, and that is Will Venable. Stole 24 last year, 26 the year before. Hit 264, 9 home runs, 45 RBIs, solid fielder, and he brings great speed on the base path. So Will Venable, another solid piece out there in right field.
I like Will Venable a lot, the pride of Princeton University. This guy was phenomenal over at Princeton, coming over to the major leagues. Really phenomenal, great future for this guy. He spent the last 5 seasons going into a 6th season with the San Diego Padres. This guy just improves every year when I look at this guy. This guy is phenomenal, and you know what? This guy plays great defensive baseball. You can look at last year, robbed a couple of players of home runs. This guy plays great. His bat's really good. His average last year wasn't as solid as I thought it would be because I had him projected to bat 270, but he got 264, which I'm okay with. He hits you home runs time to time, but on a good year, if you looked at it last year, he's going to get you about, at best 12 home runs a year. Last year he got 9. I'm pretty satisfied about that. But, Will Venable is still up-and-coming player in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I think he is. Even though he's 30 years old, a bit of a late bloomer is Will Venable. Now, looking over to their starting rotation, there's some questions, but there are some nice pieces. You begin with Clayton Richard, who will be their ace. Last year, over 200 innings for the second time in his career. Ultimately, though, for an ace, 3.99 as your ERA, a 14-14 record. Wins and losses don't mean that much to me. What means a lot is the ERA, and 3.99 is not cutting it for your ace.
For some of you guys who do not know me a whole lot, I do watch the Padres constantly, and when I watch Padres, I like to watch Clayton Richard. Clayton Richard, I watched this guy down to his minor leagues back with the Chicago White Sox. He came over to the Padres, and you know what? This guy, when his first year with the San Diego Padres, went 14-9 with a 3.75 ERA. I mean, this guy has been injury prone in his career, and he needs to stay healthy, and he needs to get back to the 2010 Clayton Kershaw that we saw that year, 14-9 with a 3.75 ERA. I hope that ERA can go down, because if you look at last year, he had an ERA at 3.99. He just needs to bring that down a little bit. But you know, I like the move here for the San Diego Padres to have Clayton Richard as their ace.
At their number 2 spot, they have another guy with a lot who's had some good seasons, but has struggled as of late. That's Edinson Volquez. In his first season with the Padres last year, went 11-11, 4.14 ERA, over 180 innings. In 2008, he was 17-6, 3.21 ERA, nearly 200 innings, was the main piece in the Josh Hamilton trade from Texas to Cincinnati, and everyone thought him and Johnny Cueto were going to be this incredible 1-2 punch. Johnny Cueto's a stud now, and Edinson Volquez has never really materialized into what we once thought he was going to be, and you know, it's just disappointing. Now, we need to readjust our expectations for Edinson Volquez, and I think an ERA right around 4, high 3s is where I expect him to be this season.
I mean, looking back to last year's team preview of the San Diego Padres, me and Tim both said that this is going to be the break or a comeback player. That didn't happen. I think I agree with you, Tim. I think about a low 4 or ERA to a high 3. I mean, that's the best you're going to be getting at him because, you know, he's been injured in his career dating back with the Cincinnati Reds. But you know what? I think the Padres are set in stone with Edinson Volquez as their number 2.
At number 3, they have Eric Stoltz last year. Eric Stoltz. Oh, I don't know what I'm saying. Eric Stoltz, who last year went 8-3 with a 2.91 ERA. That is combined between the Chicago White Sox and San Diego. He came over after a few starts coming over to San Diego. He really surprised in San Diego. 8-3, 2.92 ERA. That's only in 92 innings, so it doesn't tell you a ton, but overall Stoltz had a very good season.
I like Eric Stoltz because when you look at this guy is going to give you more innings this year, and you know what? This is what the Padre players need. They need to be going deeper into games, and I think Eric Stoltz could be that guy at number 3.
At the number 4 spot, you're looking at Tyson Ross, who last year with the Oakland Athletics really struggled. He came over in an off-season trade, just a minor move that we forgot to mention earlier on in this video. Tyson Ross last year, 2-11, 6.50 ERA. Obviously, if he does that again this year, then Freddie Garcia or Jason Marquis, any of the veterans that they've signed to minor league deals or major league deals will replace him. I think he does have more potential than that because in AAA he went 6-2 with a 2.99 ERA through a complete game. So I look for him to have an ERA more around like 4.30, between 4.30 and 4.50.
In 2011, I saw Tyson Ross play, and I really enjoyed him. He played with the Oakland Athletics. He came over to the San Diego Padres in a trade during, I think, August or early September, actually. And, you know, Tyson Ross, I was like, you know what, maybe this is going to be an up-and-coming player for the Oakland Athletics. But then, like I said, you got traded over to the San Diego Padres. I think, when you looked at last year, I think the Padres this is just a bad move right now to put him in the rotation. I think it's good enough for him to start at the AAA level and give it to a veteran role, like Tim said, you know, probably give it to Jason Marquis, but give it to Freddie Garcia. And, you know, that's still up in the air, but you know what, I think it's going to be the best move for right now is for Tyson Ross is to, you know, prepare down at the AAA Tucson level and, you know, just prepare to get back up and earn that role in the pitching rotation.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And then at the number 5 spot, you have Anthony Bass, who last year went 2-8, 4.73 ERA. He's your number 5 starter. So 4.73 is not ideal anywhere. Going 2-8 is not ideal, but he's your number 5 starter, and you're not going to get a great starter when you're a team like the San Diego Padres who doesn't have a lot of payroll to work with. The number 5 starter is kind of one of those positions where you hope that you get someone who just does good enough. And I wouldn't say that he did horrendously bad or he wouldn't be slated to pitch in the rotation this year, but Anthony Bass certainly could fare to improve this year.
At number 5, you're going to see it's actually not going to be set in stone yet because, number 5 is always that. Number 4 and number 5 in most pitching rotations are all competitive coming into spring training because you're going to be going up against, for the Padres and Anthony Bass, you're going up against Casey Kelly, Marquise, and also Freddie Garcia. But I think if the Padres are really going to go with Anthony Bass, they're going to have he has to have a solid spring because when you look at him, Jason Marquis, he didn't blow you away last year with the Padres. He was 8-11 with the Padres. I think with a couple of teams last year actually, with the Minnesota Twins, the Nationals. And you know what? I think it's going to be a tight race for that number 5 hold.
My best bet would be to go with Casey Kelly there. Ultimately, there's not any great options there, but I think Casey Kelly would be the best fit. I think both Jason Marquis and Freddie Garcia are past the point of really holding any value in a pitching rotation. Either way, we'll see what happens. Now, in their bullpen, the two guys we want to highlight are Luke Gregerson and Houston Street. Beginning with Gregerson, one of the best setup men in the game last year, went 2-0 with a 2.39 ERA, had a very good season in 71-plus innings, 77 total games. He really set the table for Houston Street, even saved 9 of 13, which when you're a setup man and you're not in the mode of being a closer, it's tough to come into that role. So 9 of 13 actually isn't as bad when you're not in the closer mindset. And then Houston Street in He always seems to do this comeback every other year and have a very good season. In his first season in San Diego, he made Padres fans quickly forget about Heath Bell because he saved 23 of 24, 185 ERA, 2-1 total record. Again, with him, it's a question of him being able to stay healthy, so it's nice that you have an option like Luke Gregerson to make sure that Houston Street isn't pitching 3 days in a row. But I like him as a closer. I still think he's one of the better closers in the game when he's able to stay healthy.
Absolutely. You have another potential closer, like you said, in Luke Gregerson, who can help out. Houston Street is going to be on an off day, and I like Luke Gregerson a lot because he can get players who come in late in the innings, and he can bail them out, and that's what Luke Gregerson's job is as the setup man, and also can bail late inning relievers out. So Luke Gregerson is a nice guy to have in your bullpen. Now going over to Houston Street, Tim, you said it frightfully and clear here that Houston Street has got to stay healthy, but you know what? Look at last year, 40 games, he had a 2-1 record and a 185 ERA. This team quickly forgot about Heath Bell, and now you're seeing Houston Street over at the closer role. Really phenomenal season for Houston Street last year.
Yeah, he really did. Now, this is a Padres team that I think Sports Illustrated had them ranked as the 14th best team in the MLB above certainly some teams that I did not believe they were above. They won 76 games last year, and that 76 was with Chase Headley absolutely playing out of his mind at the end of the season. It's a team that has a lot of potential, but there's not enough certainty and there's not enough power in this lineup for me to truly believe that this is going to be a team that is going to be a playoff team. I'm looking right around 75 wins for this Padres team, Justin.
I have them about 73 to 75 wins. I have to agree with you there. The Padres, I think this team could be, back into that race, back in, I think it was, 2010 or 2011 when they were really competing against the San Francisco Giants late into the season. But I think this team really needs to, hit up the free agency market next year. Or, there are some potential, free agents out there that this team could probably mix around and have a late signing. But, I think this team is destined to be a 73 to 75 win team this year.
Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind is that the Diamondbacks underachieved last year. The Giants in the regular season, although they won the World Series, they didn't have a great regular season because guys like Tim Lincecum, Brian Wilson was gone, so they didn't have a great regular season. They're probably going to do better. And look at what the Dodgers did late in the season last year. They didn't gel during the season, but adding Zach Greinke and everyone that they've been able to add, I think that they're going to be a better team. And it's tough to believe that the Rockies could be as bad as they were last year. So overall, this is going to be a tough division, a division that a few years ago was up for grabs. It will be a tough division, and I see the San Diego Padres finishing in 4th place in this division with about 74 wins, 75 wins in that area. I'm Tim Kelly for Justin Gotze. This is the Real Sports Talk and Nation Sports Blog presents the 30 Clubs, 30 Previews MLB special. We'll see you guys later.